Hey, you're listening to Don't Lie to Your Life Coach podcast with Kim Arrington. I'm Kim Arrington. I'm a life coach, a weight loss coach, an author, and a badass passionate about helping you connect back to your most authentic self. Join me here each week so I can coach you on how to think all those juicy thoughts that get you feeling your absolute best and taking some big ass action. Coaching has changed my life, and it can change your life too. I'm here to give you real life solutions to create a life you'll love. Because the truth is, boo, you ain't just got problems, you got options. Hey, I want to give a trigger warning. I actually am going to I want to make sure the people understand what we're talking about today. It's a very difficult topic for people, and we are talking about suicide today. If this topic is too triggering, I completely understand that. Please turn this off and find another episode to listen to or join us next week. But this is really an important topic. I'm actually recording this podcast probably sooner than I need to, because unfortunately, my life has been touched by someone who died by suicide. And as I'm in that grief process, I have decided to share that part. I did not get permission to talk about that particular instance from the family, so I will not give any details about that. But the topic of suicide, I know, is something that has to be talked about, and I want to have the courage to talk about it. And I want to also potentially get things wrong, and still feel like I tried, because I don't, by the time someone has a plan, by the time someone has gone very far in the planning, the potential may be too late. And I want for us to be able to intervene if possible, but even more so, this episode really is about the people who are left and what to do. I know that from the time I was about, I don't remember, 8 or 10 years old, I had an aunt who died by suicide. In high school, I had a classmate who literally sat next to me, died by suicide. I know many people who've had this touch their lives. There are other times that suicide has touched my life, and I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it. So that's what we're going to do. I do want to share some stats with you about suicide because, in particular during the pandemic, seemed like we were hearing about these stories, a lot of high profile suicides as well. So according to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 4 young people are reporting suicidal thoughts. That is people 18 to 24. And those people have seriously considered suicide in 30 days preceding the survey. They talked to 5,412 adults in the U.S. between June 24th and June 30th. I'm going to look at the byline and say that this story was from 2020. We know the pandemic presented a different challenge for people. The story talks about that. And I am going to link some ways to get help. I will go ahead and say that the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline can be reached at 800-273-8255 or text crisis text by texting home to 741-741. Let me say that again. So the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is at 800-273-8255 or text the crisis line is text home, all uppercase, HOME, to 741-741. Okay. So from a coach's perspective, this has come up for me in my practice, mainly around people, family members who have died by suicide and the people who are left. And I want to share some things that potentially could, I don't want to use the word help, but that can offer assistance in that difficult time. If you have experienced who's died by suicide, here's how it's different from a person who dies in old age or, who has an illness. The difference is that there is an internalized shame when a person who you interacted with dies by suicide that may not be present when a person has a prolonged illness or even a sudden passing, because there is this sense that we could have helped. And I want to be really honest and say this, and I really believe this, and I might catch some flack for this, but I really need to say this to the survivors who are left. There are some times where the help was not going to happen in the timeline to prevent the suicide from happening. There are people who do die by suicide who feel like they are a burden to their families. They are dealing with major mental health, things that are untreated, maybe undiagnosed, maybe they are diagnosed. But I really need to say this to families. We have this whole prevention. I mean, I'm a coach. I pride myself in trying to help and prevent negative outcomes. However, there are going to be negative outcomes sometimes. And there is potentially some hopelessness or some powerlessness that arises from that, that the people who are left they can decide to look at and grieve and deal with. And so I think there are parents whose kids have known that they are open to communication and they can say anything. And yet this is a choice that is made. And I really need for people to understand that. And I think I'm more emphatic about that because powerlessness is something that when you look at it and you recognize that there may not have been anything that you can do, that can help your journey. And I hate to use this word, but acceptance around, I did what I could, I knew what I knew. And unfortunately, this very devastating thing happened. And now I'm left to grieve that. And part of that grief is going to be around allowing yourself to know that these things do happen in families where there is a lot of love, in families where there is a lot of support. People still sometimes make the decision to die by suicide. And, I don't know, I feel even funny about using the word decision, but that it happens is what I think I want to say. And when this kind of thing happens, it's okay to recognize this is going to be a grief journey. And we know the 7 stages of grief. I'm going to go over those. I know a lot of people say 5 stages, but it's been expanded to include 7 stages. And I want to say this too, even on a grief journey, I've dealt with a lot of people on grief journeys. I've had my own numerous grief journeys around different things. As terrible as something like this may be, a grief journey does not have to be just complete sadness. When we think of our loved one, we may feel sadness, we may feel love, we may feel a range of emotions. And sometimes people on grief journeys, especially ones that happen in this way, may find themselves laughing at something or experiencing joy and then feeling guilt around that. And guilt is not helpful. It's understandable, but no grief journey looks the exact same. And there will be moments where that grief is less palpable. And that's important, is that when this thing happens, and I know that this happened to me, is I pulled back. I didn't answer my phone. I didn't really engage in messages. I needed to pull back and connect to myself, and not feel as available. And also, some people choose to be very available and want to talk to people and want to have support. Both are right. Both, whatever it is you need. You know how they say there's no right or wrong answer? No, in this case, it's what you need is right for you. Okay. Shame and guilt are going to go back and forth. It's going to come up. The shame of feeling like and let's just give a definition of shame. Shame is I am wrong, and guilt is I did something wrong. And they're so closely related that you may experience a back and forth or them at the same time. Another really important thing is that although a loved one dies by suicide, it's really important to not sum up their life by that act, to remember all the times that were had, to realize that there was happiness and joy and laughter and all, and you may have anger towards the person who died by suicide. You may have a range of feelings, but that final act does not sum up the total value of their lives. It absolutely doesn't. You get to feel how you feel about the act and also hold what you feel about the life you shared with them in another place too. On Saturday, I stopped at a grocery store that I wasn't familiar with, and I was looking for bottled water, and I was going down the aisles, and in a weird, strange way, it made me think about my sadness in the situation of the unfamiliarity of the grocery store and the unfamiliarity of, having a lot of experience with people dying by suicide, and looking for my grief, locating my grief, looking at my sadness. And instead of thinking the sadness was something I had to immediately push away, being curious about it, turning it over, feeling the depth of it, feeling when it ebbed, feeling when it flowed, and knowing that it wasn't going to end me, that how I felt on that day was not going to be how I felt later. And, although my relationship to the person who passed away was not the closest, I definitely felt a depth of feeling, sadness, all those things. And that's okay too. I had not been in contact for, years with the person, and I still felt shame, didn't feel guilt. I felt sad. I felt deep regret. And I also knew that I did not understand what the stakes were. The other thing is consider speaking about it publicly if you choose to. And publicly means to talk about it with people you know, to go into forums if you want to find, support groups, to bring it up at meetings, public meetings, to find a way that feel like, and I think about this one, this is all about what your desire is versus what you have to do. That's a really big point to make. Not having to do anything. Sometimes just sitting with it with yourself is enough. But if you choose to speak about it publicly, then there are places to do that, and to give your self time to find those places. I think a really important question to ask is, what do you need now? And what you need now can change. But what do you need? Do you need quiet? Do you need solitude? Do you need to be around people? Do you need to be talking about the loved one? Do you need to be looking at pictures? Do you need to see videos? What do you need? And once you find that out, doing that and honoring that, or deciding you're not ready to do that, but maybe in a few weeks you're ready to do that. But just continually asking yourself, what do I need, and how can I feel safe in a situation that was out of my control, that I may feel powerless to? What are some things that I can do, or I can make requests for other people to do? um, Maybe you want to designate a person to be your person, or a couple of people to be your people as you're grieving the situation. Ask those people if they have space to listen. Ask those people if you can come back to them and talk to them about the thing. I know that I had that during the time, and that really was important. Um, let the memories bring you comfort, or let the memories bring you whatever feeling that comes up. You can think about fun times, easy times, like good times. And you can also not idealize the person and think about the whole totality of that relationship with the person. So there are some people who we have very complicated relationships with, who die by suicide, and we don't need to see them as just one way. We need to be honest about that. Remember, journaling, open up your phone and doing a video, any way that you need to express, or archive how you're feeling, could be helpful. This is another big thing. It's natural to evaluate your life when these things come up. I think when anyone passes away, especially if they're a younger person, or it's unexpected, or it's, by suicide, it's going to often have you evaluate your life. It's going to often, the questions may come up about what you want in your life, what you don't want in your life, what works, what doesn't work. That's very, very natural. And I recommend you allowing that to happen. Okay. I wrote this line about my dad. My dad passed away in a car accident, and this, it was the anniversary of his death, and I wrote this line: "A heart can break and come back together," meaning that we can experience such profound grief, such profound sadness, and we can also experience coming back together, reconciliation, all those things that, if we give ourselves enough time, space, enough allowing our feelings, then our heart can come back together. It can. Will it be different? Possibly. Is different bad? No, different is different, So that line brings me comfort. It reminds me there's hope in that line. And it's okay if you are not ready for silver linings. Do not rush silver linings. Silver linings are there. Allow yourself a process. What I said, a grief journey, right? So I share the resources for the National Prevention Hotline. There's so many places to look for this: a Google search, a YouTube search. At this point, most people have been touched by death by suicide. You'll be surprised. There is a stigma attached to it that I hope is lifted, and we're able to have more honest conversations. In this weekend, I shared with people, when I did push myself to do some things because I thought that was important. And I did share with people some of what I was feeling and why I was feeling that way. And it did help to lessen what I was experiencing. And you guys always know what I'm going to say to you, right? A coach, a therapist, an advocate, a clergy person can help you with this. There are trainings out here for organizations. I know I took a training at my last job and got certified in noticing the signs of suicide and how to intervene. That's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is really about those of us who are left. What I want to do in the most compassionate, loving way that I can is just say, I may not know you, I may have never laid eyes on you, but I'm holding space for all the people who have been touched by this unfortunate thing, where the numbers and the ages are seeming to get younger and the numbers are increasing. I am a person who needs a silver lining. And my hope is that if you are a person who is considering suicide, or you are a person who's touched by suicide, that you reach out for help, that you allow yourself to be guided through a journey that can bring you some comfort, okay? This was a tough one. I hope that I was able to give some insight and just some comfort, and just to let you know you're not alone. This was completely shocking and for me, and I'm still working through it, and I'm going to allow myself the time to do that, and I hope you do the same, okay? I will see you next episode. Take care of yourself. Sending you so much love, and allow yourself to do whatever you need, okay? All right.
Are you feeling what you just heard? Good, good. Repeat after me. You don't have to figure it out on your own again anymore. I'm here to help. Head over to KimArrington.com and download my free video series dedicated to getting you feeling your best right now. Look around, there's some good stuff waiting on you. Got questions? Well, we're always talking on the socials, so find me on YouTube, Insta, and the book. Don't be shy, y'all. Go listen to another episode or join me here the same time next week. Finally, don't keep good shit to yourself. Share this with a homie that could use some help too. Remember, we're not lying to ourselves anymore. We're not lying to our doctors. And you damn sure don't lie to your life coach.